Welcome to the Collaborative Resource Hub by Wellness Provisions. Our mission is to bridge the gap between mental health, wellness, and music, specifically rock and roll. I'm Amy McBride, owner of Wellness Provisions, the most badass wellness business. Wellness Provisions supplies rock and rollers with high quality supplements. We give you a trustworthy place to go where you can essentially shop blindfolded. Our wellness kits were created out of a need to simplify your shopping experience and make it stress free. You'll get the most effective nutrients in the least amount of bottles with the least trial and error. Visit the Collaborative Resource Hub for helpful resources that can nudge you in the right direction when you're ready to incorporate some wellness into your life. My goal is to facilitate inspiration. You don't have to feel alone. I know that's easier said than done, but if that guy did it, so can you. Let's inspire each other. Last but not least, my legal disclaimer: nothing in this interview or the Collaborative Resource Hub substitutes medical advice. Please connect with your GP if you need medical guidance. Well, hello. Today we are interviewing a super cool dude named Luke Goozdich, and he has a business called Saved for More that blends boxing and mental health. He is in school, I think graduate school, for psychology, and then he'll get all of the letters at the end of his name here pretty soon and really go full force with this business. But in the meantime, he has really valuable, interesting, insightful things to say about motivation and consistency and exercise, going with the flow of nature, and just it's a really cool interview. If you want some motivation, this is going to be pretty badass. So enjoy the interview. Yo, Luke, how's
How's
it
it
going,
going?
man?
I'm good. I'm good. Feeling nervous, but excited to talk to you.
Yeah, well, same here. So we're in the same boat.
Absolutely.
So you have a business, an entity called Saved for More.
Mhm.
What is that about?
So right now it's really much in the baby stages. I'm still in my graduate program for clinical mental health counseling. But since I started my pursuit of psychology in that field, I've always known that to treat an individual holistically, I wanted to add the fitness aspect and the nutrition aspect because it's just too interlinked to mental health to overlook that to me.
Yeah.
And so Save for More is basically the pre-stages, like the Instagram and the website are the pre-stages of me building up eventually what will be my clientele and counseling, where I want to be the expert in my area, which is around Pittsburgh. I just want to be the guy to come to for fitness and counseling together.
So do you eventually want to have like a brick and mortar?
Yeah, I want to have a brick and mortar, and I think that access to just this information is important. That's why the website and the Instagram will always be there for free psychoeducational resources. And there's telehealth, so I can do Zoom and things like that
Yeah.
or it's probably a more secure system than Zoom, but for counseling online clients. But I would still have to stay within the state of Pennsylvania because of like ethics and
Licensing stuff.
guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. All those caveats.
right. And that is the one thing I'm worried about with the mixing personal training essentially with counseling. So I still have to talk to a bunch of people to see if that's ethical and allowed. Because if not, I'll just have to be a life coach, which loses like credibility. I can't be an LPC, like I can't be a licensed professional counselor,
So,
potentially.
but could you market yourself as like a life coach and then have the letters at the end anyway?
Yeah, I'd have to see the rules of that, but that is one thing that I did like keep in the back of my head is that I still have the same training and I've taken the same tests. I'm just not operating under that.
Yeah.
But what makes me feel good is there are other individuals who I've seen, like there's something called Team Move in
Okay.
Texas, and she's like a boot camp meets group therapy. So that sounds like I'm in the clear, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. That's awesome though. When do you have sort of like a timeline for yourself that you're working towards or what?
Yeah, so I need to do practicum and internship. It's basically all I have left in my program. So I will be graduated by late next year, like winter next year or the following like summer.
Okay.
Um, so I'll graduate soon, and then I have to do all the hours to get certified to be a LPC. I had to take the NCE, which is like the National Counseling Examination. So I'd say like in 2 to 3 years, I'll have the letters,
Yeah.
and then, but in the meantime, like right now, actually, I'm starting to get personal training certifications, and I'm just gonna try to do my own thing more and more so I can develop um, my style of doing that and try
Yeah.
to really work on that.
So is all the training going to be like boxing specific or like,
I personally like boxing, so I have a bias towards it, but I want to find whatever activity is fun for that individual because I think that's what it comes down to for me. And boxing is that's what I found fun. I watched Rocky as a kid. I want the shredded side abs like Stallone and Rocky, so that I need to box. But for someone else, they might have seen Footloose and they want to dance. You know what I mean? I just want to like incorporate whatever kind of activity is fun for them
okay.
into it. So it doesn't have to be boxing specific, but it burns a bunch of calories, and I do think I'll implement it because it's kind of my like favorite
Yeah.
exercise.
I used to like in my younger days, I wanted to get into boxing or kickboxing or something because I
Mhm.
had like a lot of like anger issues. And I thought if I'm going
Yeah,
to exercise, I want to like, like beat the shit out of something or something.
right. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. It's the first idea of my head about that was when we were learning defense mechanisms, and one of them, the positive one, is sublimation, which is taking that feeling and putting it towards something productive. And he
Yeah.
said, "Hit a heavy bag" is one, and I was like, "Hey, what? I hit a heavy bag?" And I was like, "Counseling and boxing, could they go together?" And I started to do some research on it, and you obviously know the research into wellness and just like eating healthy and all those things for well, like feeling good and
Hmm.
wellness. So I was just like blown away that counseling doesn't do this more. We just kind of ignore this ginormous facet of the individual.
Well, so much of, I mean, like, I guess conventional medicine is everything is in its own box. And I mean,
Hmm.
that's the whole thing is holistic health,
Right.
you know, spirituality or, exercise, eating well, like all of these things are segregated instead of, as one.
Yeah, and that's definitely not how it should be.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No, our healthcare system is very weird. It's like sick care system is how one person described it. And I was like, that's basically accurate. We just get you not sick and try to give you medication for something.
Yeah.
My dad's a chiropractor, so he's always like been more. He's like had the analogy to me that our healthcare system, where people with pebbles in their shoe come in, we give them Tylenol or ibuprofen to numb that pain instead of taking the pebble out. And I'm like,
That's
that makes no
good.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, this is a whole rabbit hole, but it's,
yeah,
money and, the 1%. But anyways,
yeah.
um, who is like, do you have sort of like an ideal person that would come into your Saved for More, network or whatever?
As far as like having another co-counselor or something like that.
No, like as far as like a client, like why would someone,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Um, that's where I'm still in the developmental stages. I've been thinking recently the most pragmatic and like the most useful version of this I can see is people coming for weight loss. I feel like that's where most people would get the most out of it. Because I was thinking, how do you spend an hour like the typical counseling session and work on someone who's already like really fit but wants to get shredded or something like that's their workout needs to be at least 45 minutes then or something. But
yeah,
for an individual who needs weight loss, you can spend 45 minutes counseling, 15 minutes exercise. Because I think the counseling and the emotional piece, I mean, that's what I'm going to be there for. And I can assist with the workouts and I want to add that. But I'm not going to be giving someone the same kind of workout like a personal trainer would. So I
right,
think it's an individual who's not peak performance trying to become even more of an athlete. I think it's people who are either, you know, maybe like myself when a few months ago with the clots in my heart, lung, and legs where like you're limited, or an individual who's overweight and they can only do like 15, 20 minutes. That's all they need.
right.
Right.
So what drew, I guess like what in your life kind of pulled you towards what you're doing now in this passion?
It's probably it's a mixture of things starting from my birth with the heart condition. I was born with a congenital heart defect, and I
Mhm.
had two open heart surgeries right from birth. So I've always been like close to death in a sense of like I've always known that death was an option when I like should not have. Like when I was way too young, I was already thinking about death and dying. And so that's what brought me into like existentialism, which is one of the forms of counseling that I really enjoy. And I found that interest there. My mom actually is a counselor now. She wasn't when I was growing up,
Hmm.
but then that around my high school time she like started to go to her master's and do that. So in high school, I started to see that as an option that was interesting. And my dad was what probably brought the physical, like fitness aspect. He was a boxer. He, like I said, is a chiropractor, has these ideas about holistically treating individuals. So like that sort of funneled me down into counseling and fitness, I think.
That's interesting. Yeah. Ha I mean, what is a little kid like what is what is, like, your mortality as, like, as an elementary school kid, like, what does that do to you?
Yeah, I would say there was, for how you categorize my thoughts on my death, was from birth until middle school, high school, didn't think about it probably. Like, it was just a scar, and then they said I couldn't play sports, so it made me upset and I felt limited. So it drew me in, like, inside a lot. So I was very, like, intrinsic, and I did a lot of watching movies, like I said, Rocky, like that. I just kinda, like, formulated my identity within myself because I wasn't allowed to do rough play or any of these things that
Wow.
kids do, and so I was just, like, inside myself becoming an overthinker. And around high school is when I did the typical, like, emo high school kid writing poetry about existentialism and death and things like that, and so that's when, like, it got, like, depressive. And then my senior year and freshman year of college is when I was, like, suicidal. That was my darkest point, was because that was a culmination of all that, where I was like, "Oh, I'm so close to death all the time. Everybody's close to death all the time. Nothing matters," and I got, like, really nihilistic with it. But then, I was able to overcome that, but then I was reintroduced to my death last year when I got these clots in my heart, lung, and legs. I went to Arizona, just to be quick about this, and there's something called valley fever. It's like a lung infection you can get that's specific to that area. And so I got that lung infection. I was working out at an MMA gym. It was the Arizona heat that I've never been in before. And my heart condition, I need to stay hydrated because it's a passive flow. It doesn't get pumped like everybody else's heart. It's just
Yeah.
passive. Um, and so I got all these clots, and I was in the hospital for months. And the recovery, I couldn't walk for months. And so then I was reintroduced to this with the information I have now. I'm in my master's program, and so I got to examine it again, and that's where I really have, like, entrenched myself into existentialism and try to learn more about that, because to me, death is one of the most motivating factors, and it's not nihilistic like I was seeing it back in high school. It is like, it makes every day feel like you're playing on house money, and like you should be grateful and happy and that you have this chance. And it's also, if you want to see it as like this impending doom, well, then that's something you should be running away from towards your goals and make sure you get to do them before time runs out.
Yeah, you use it as, like, a healthy fire under you to, like,
Right.
go and be motivated.
Yeah. So that's sort of like the ideology of my experience with death. It kind of took that route of like not caring, caring way too much and being like nihilistic, and then to using it as fuel.
So, like, when you were in high school, was there anything that you like, did you do, like, therapy stuff, or did you I mean, just a lot of writing, or, like, what kind of helped you, like, manage those
I
thoughts?
Yeah, I did write. Like I wrote, and I still like to write. But I was writing the wrong kind of stuff back then. I was kind of ruminating on darkness. But that is also when I, like you said, I started counseling. So I went to therapy in high school, and um, I started to get introduced to mental health concepts for myself and get help for myself. And it didn't really pay off at first. Like it wasn't like an easy, fast process for me. It took until like halfway through my sophomore year or the beginning of my sophomore year of college. That's when it really started to click for me, and I really got the insight.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was resistant in
Well,
counseling, even.
that's it. I feel like, I mean, I have a buddy, and he had all of these, these books and this overall knowledge of, like, meditation and wellness and things like that, but it does, and myself too. I mean, I've always known, about chakras and meditating and stuff like that for, like, I don't know, like 15 years.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until, like, maybe the last, like, 6 months that it clicked. And I feel like everyone, like, you have that moment where, like, you're actually ready to do something with that information.
Right. It reminds me of this quote that I read in it was like a boxing novel. I put this on the Instagram. This guy said it perfectly in a random boxing novel. How you're at the boxing gym and he's showing you, do your jab like this, have your feet like this, and none of it makes sense to you. And you're like, okay, what? And you're like, okay, I guess I get it. And then one day it all just like makes sense, and you're like, oh, I understand everything he was saying. And that
Yeah.
is the same thing with counseling. Like you said, I've had that information. My mom was a counselor. I was in counseling. I was studying counseling in college, and I still was like depressed because I just hadn't had that moment yet.
Yeah.
It didn't click for me yet.
Yeah. I think it is. It's an organic, like when it's the right time for you to have that happen and you're ready for like that because it's opening a door, you
Mhm.
have to be ready for that next path or whatever part of your life.
Right. And it's not like you get that one door open and then it's like perfect, because my first door opening was that sophomore year, and then the second like venture into darkness was the clots and going to the hospital, and that opened like another path, and I became even more mentally healthy after that than I was before. So you can still continue to grow, and you should. And if
Yeah.
you do have slip ups back into where you were, that's fine too. Don't
Mhm.
like don't beat yourself up, but just don't identify as that anymore. Or just
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a little slip.
So, like, having forgiveness for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not gonna it's like how my counseling one of my group counseling professor says it's like a emotional burp. Like you'll just like it'll come up sometimes, and you can't, just say excuse me and move on. You can't like beat yourself up about that. You have to.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that. Is that the same person who, I saw the thing on your Instagram about the cup, the
He
plastic
is the
cup?
cup guy.
Yes,
He's great.
he's smart.
He's got the best analogies, I swear.
Yeah, so briefly, just since I mentioned something that no one else is gonna know, what's the little cup analogy?
Okay, so he gave you like a styrofoam cup. I had a plastic, like tiny red solo cup, but same
Yeah,
situation, a cup with a hole in the bottom. And you can think about this in a bunch of different ways, but the way I gave it on Instagram was a relationship metaphor of you are an individual. You're either the cup or the water, and the water filling in is people. It's the validation and it's the love and it's all these things. But if you're trying to do that for an individual who has a hole in their cup and they're just hemorrhaging this stuff out and they constantly need it, you're doing an impossible task that's not gonna work out for you. You're exhausting yourself, and that individual needs to make sure they're whole before you can start giving them love where they can accept it. So don't dry yourself out trying to, fulfill someone who has to do some work for themselves. And if you're someone with a hole, examine yourself and stop looking for the outside world to help you. Like you have an internal leak. That's what's happening.
yeah. I really like that metaphor, like, it sits right here for me because it's a good visualization of,
Hmm.
like, being like, "Oh, yeah, that person, like, essentially has a hole in them, and so, like, you just keep doing this, but unless they fix their hole, like, nothing changes."
Right. And we're all that person with a cup, even without a relationship. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I can watch Netflix show after Netflix show, do this drug, drink this, and I'm trying to do everything. But if I'm not whole, if I haven't figured myself out, it's just gonna hemorrhage right out, and I'm not gonna feel good. I'm gonna feel empty.
So what are ways, I mean, just from, like, your own experience or
Hmm.
your education, like, what are ways that someone can start the process of filling that hole?
I'm obviously biased, but I would recommend some kind of therapy or counseling, even if it's not with a therapist or a counselor. Talk with your friends deeply, like not surface level talks, but talk with your friends deeply about these things that you have constantly tried to ignore or run from. Rather, like even if it's consciously or unconsciously, there's certain areas that I think a lot of people, it's like a tender wound that they're going to turn away from. They're not going to really look at, but you have to like take care of that wound and fix it up. And we can do that only by examining it, and we can only examine it if we are one, aware of it, and two, take the time to process it, talking it out, really thinking about where it came from, and just having conversations, like deep, rich conversations about these things with supportive people, I think is one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah.
Because for me, it wasn't even just counseling. It was my friend Dom, who's been on my show a bunch of times. Like he was the guy who just sitting there and talking and trying to figure it out. You don't have to be some mental health expert to be
Yeah.
empathetic.
Yeah,
And
and compassionate and
mhm,
supportive and yeah.
right.
Because again, I feel like it's the same, you're gonna have that click moment when as you're talking to whoever you're talking to, it's like, oh shit, yeah. Because even in like traditional therapy, I mean, they're asking you stuff or giving you the space to talk, but it's you're the one who has the
Right.
realization, right?
Yeah, in counseling, the the counselor is supposed to just be a mirror for
Hmm.
yourself. Like they don't do anything, not giving you advice. That what you see in movies, as counselors, that's like not a great representation. They're usually like giving these speeches and advice specifically to you, but counseling, you're not supposed to give advice. You're not
So,
supposed to make the person dependent on you.
okay, is it really then? Because also I've seen in movies, they always it's like it feels like a running joke where they just ask, a question right back at you, and they're always asking you something. Is that how it actually goes then?
Well, it depends. The question you hear in movies all the time is actually a no-no question. Like, how does that make you feel? I've heard that's a no-no question because
Really?
nothing can make you feel anything. You choose to feel something. Like if
Right,
you're taking away their power by saying, "What does this make you feel?" Or
right,
how does that make you feel?
right.
But there is one thing that if you overuse this tool, I guess, in the toolbox, people don't like this. I've heard like my friends who went to counseling, this counselor did something called like paraphrasing or just basically like you said restating your thing. That's not good therapy.
Yeah,
That person's just regurgitating everything you say. It's good to use here and there for specific like points, but there are some counselors. My professor in undergrad said most counselors are just horrible at their job. They're just bad, and we need to get better counselors because you'll just paraphrase and parrot back to what you're saying, and it's like, okay, I could just not pay
yeah. It's
this
like,
money,
"Hey,
and
I'm glad you're listening," but
yeah, I need something more.
yeah. Are there, like, specific kinds of therapies, that you found were helpful to you or that you've heard are more, I guess, maybe generally more effective than others for people or
Yeah, there's like something called evidence-based treatment for therapy. Those are the ones that have the empirical backings to say like this actually works. And there are a bunch of them. CBT is like the king of counseling.
yeah, I have a buddy who just, like, swears by that.
Right. My One of my favorite versions of CBT is something called REBT, Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy, and it stems from Stoicism, and I love Stoicism. Um, but there's one model that I can give right now to the people because this is one of the most helpful things I think in counseling. Period. The ABC model is the activating incident, and then we think it's A C, and C is consequences, which is like how I feel. So let's say you call me ugly, I'm gonna go to consequences, and I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm sad. But actually, we're missing B, that middle point, which is the beliefs about it. That's what you're thinking in your head. Oh, she thinks I'm ugly. That means nobody's gonna like me. It means all these different things about rejection, and and we filter that through our childhood traumas and different kinds of things. That's where it's actually coming from. So we can change B, and we can change C by changing B, which is
Right.
really cool.
Huh.
And it's just an easy, fast thing because every time you feel something, you get angry, you get cut off, and you get pissed, then you can immediately be like, "Well, wait, well, what's the belief?" And then I
Yeah.
can just change it, and then I'm not having that same consequence.
And then I guess the more you practice that and are aware of that, you can actually use that when you're in a heightened state. Because I've always found, like, when I used to have, like, anger issues, I could not intercept the anger. I went from
Mhm.
0 to 11 in, like, I mean, like, half a second. I couldn't figure out how to, like, intercept it.
Right. That's where the practices do, like you said, come into play. You have to sort of train yourself back into that. And
Yeah,
it's like anything, it's not going to be easy at first. And you just have to be repetitive with it and keep it up, and it'll become more like second nature as you do it. And
right.
then you don't have to play that out in your head every time, like, okay, A, then B, and then C. You just kind of think about like, okay,
But then
my
you're probably
beliefs.
not getting sad or mad because you're still, like, trying to figure out,
Yeah,
like
you're just inquisitive. I'm confused on what I. But no, like it's just at a certain point you'll realize that your thoughts aren't always correct, and you can make adjustments, and you're the one in control of this. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's your perception. Reality is your perception.
right. And automatic, like I think we trust our automatic thoughts too often. Especially when I was in high school, you don't question these things when you're like, life's meaningless, and then you just accept that and you just get depressed. But then you could think about it and you could see it from other angles. There are other ways to use meaninglessness. Existential therapy, one of the four givens is meaninglessness. And what people are always asking, like, what's the meaning of life? With failing to realize that life is asking you, well, what is the meaning of life? That's something for you to answer. You find it. What are you passionate about? Go do that.
Yeah,
Like you have unlimited possibilities. You don't have to be sad about it being meaningless. Meaningless. You can go make meaning. That's
yeah,
actually a good thing.
that's it. I mean, but what about people who I guess I don't know, I was gonna say people who don't have that self-starter, like, fucking figure it out and you
Mhm.
can. Like,
Yeah. that mind, like you're saying that they don't have that mindset to do that in a sense. Um, that's the thing we said you have to be ready for it, and that's one thing in counseling. I forget if this was it might have been Carl Jung, I think, who said this. He said therapy doesn't work if there aren't these two things. The person has to be willing to acknowledge that there's a problem and be willing to change. Without those two things, it's just not going to work, and nothing's going to work. So
Mm.
I think it's going to have to be to the point in your life where things just get too wrong, and it's you hear like the rock bottom thing, like once you just don't want to accept where your life is anymore, you'll be willing to make changes. Until then, there's not much like anybody can say to you or anything you
Until
can
then,
do.
you're a cup with a hole in it.
Yeah, you're just leaking, and if you're fine with just trying to constantly fill it, and you're like, well, it's not optimal, but we'll do it until you get fed up with that, and you're ready to make a change, then there's going to be no change.
Yeah. All right. Hey, on your website, there's one thing that I love, and I think when I first checked out your website, I think I told you this then too. Um, this is not a place for gurus, life hacks, or quick fixes. Bettering yourself
Yeah,
takes discipline, consistency, and a commitment to fight immediate gratification. I love that.
thank you. Yeah, that's I think like one of my core philosophies is I
Yeah.
think we're always looking inside every book, inside every like motivational speech for one little key. And
Mhm.
there's just no key at all. Like you just have to bash the door down.
Yeah.
Like that's all you can do.
What are the top 3 things that you found to help the most amount of people?
Okay. Let me think. I would say one of them is examining the stories that you tell yourself, like the narrative form of who you think you are. If I were to ask you, who are you? What is the story behind you? That stuff's important, and we don't examine it, and we don't take into account how important it is. For me, I've told a story about how I grew up thinking I was our idiot brother of the family, and I had all these um, intellectual disabilities, and I was in the special room for like the bad kids who don't know school and can't figure it out. And so I always thought I was just dumb, and I got D's and C's throughout high school. And then I made a switch in college, and I was getting all A's, and I was in the honors program. So, my brain didn't change, but what changed was the thoughts or the beliefs about myself, the narrative. Because I
Right.
had one professor sit me down and tell me like, "You're not stupid. You were just not trying," and like really put it out to me. And I was like, you're right. Like I never opened a textbook, so how can I expect to be smart? I never sat there and studied, so how can I expect to be smart? And
Huh.
so once I changed that belief, I was like, okay, then I can be smart if I want to. I just have to put the work in. So these kind of narratives are important. That's one thing. Two is taking ownership, like that book, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. People have heard
Mhm.
about it. That one's one of my favorites because in any situation where you might feel the most helpless, and hopeless, there's some piece of it that you can take ownership of. There's something you can find for yourself to take charge of. And that's what I think we have to do because we can, in the face of disaster, either sit there and freak out about how it's such a disaster, but we could also look inwards and say, like, all right, well, what can I personally do to figure something out? So I
Mhm.
think just having that mindset switch of what can I take ownership for? What can I be responsible for? And then the third thing is the idea of the feared self and the ideal self. It's one of my favorite concepts.
Is
You
that
might
like a
hear
shadow?
sort of, yeah, like the shadow. It's building up. There's just so many different ways to call it. Like I've heard personal hell, personal heaven, but in your head, just picture what your life would be if you let all your bad habits take over. If you let all of the laziness or whatever it is for you, the drug addictions, if you let that just completely wreak havoc on your life, what does that look like? And then build the opposite. If you were just to really figure this thing out and you were your best self, and tomorrow, like the clouds parted and you were perfect, what does that life look like? And you build this hell you're running from, this fire that's coming towards you, and this heaven you're running towards. So I think those three principles for people I've found to be the most consistently useful.
Hmm. Um, do you have like, because you mentioned a book
hmm I
there.
brought a stack of books in case you asked about books.
I'm gonna ask about books and podcasts so that we can give some people like some good,
Okay,
leads to run down.
absolutely. I love reading. I think that's like one thing I did not do when I was younger, and it's just so good for you. At least now in this day and age too, the added benefit of not being on your phone for a little bit and just not getting a constant dopamine influx.
Although everyone does the, Audible and Kindle.
Yeah, but try to get like an actual book though. It's sick.
It is.
So
I'm
the
trying
ops.
to read like a book like at least a book a month,
Mhm.
depending on, but I'm trying to like read. I finished 3 books in the last 3 weeks, I think,
That's
actually.
sick. That's a fiery like record right there. What are you reading? Anything?
The last one I read was it was a newer Mark Manson book. The guy who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah,
His one,
everything's fucked.
yeah, that one. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, I
I
haven't read it,
forgot
but
about.
I've heard about
It was good. I really liked it because like it's good like mind expansion,
it.
and I was laughing in a lot of it. It was awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I have
So
to check those out. I haven't read the first one either, so I need to get on both of those.
yeah, your stack, go.
Okay, so the first one I have is The Obstacle is the Way. This is the newest one I read. I read this over the summer by Ryan Holiday. So this is Stoicism. It's like an introduction to Stoicism, which we already mentioned goes to REBT now. But this is a book that somehow wasn't written during the coronavirus pandemic, but is like so perfect for this time. It literally opens with a story of a pandemic happening in a situation and a guy making a business out of it and like using that as an opportunity. And it's all about turning like very disastrous things into catalysts for success. It's a
Yes,
really good book for
that is.
that.
I'm going to interrupt you
Hmm.
because at the end, spoiler alert, I'm going to ask you what your favorite quote is.
Okay.
But that what you just said reminds me of mine, which is in the middle of chaos lies opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
perfect because that book for me, like I saw it for the pandemic for the world, but for me, this was such a personal book at the time because of the health things that I had last year. Like I was like, well, that's so good because that thing was terrible for me and I hated it, but it actually did springboard me into much more success. And if I chose to just see myself as a victim and be like, "Can you believe I had all these clots?" and just like freak out about it and then just sit there and atrophy, that would have been no good. But he says it's the timeless art of turning trials into triumph. Just gotta
Yeah.
do that.
So when
It's
you're
sick.
ready to say fuck victimhood, that book
Yeah,
is good.
absolutely. The next one, it'll make you feel like you can never use the victim card ever again, and that is Man's Search for Meaning. If you've Have you heard of this one?
I
Viktor
think
Frankl.
so.
So Viktor Frankl was in the concentration camps back in World War II, and he wrote this from Auschwitz. Um, it's a quintessential existential book.
Okay.
But like this one, I always say, like I said, you can't play the victim card after this one because this guy was able to find meaning in one of the worst situations in like world history, the Holocaust. And it's just a great book on finding that inner meaning and becoming intrinsically motivated and looking at those givens of life, meaninglessness, death, isolation, and freedom, and taking charge even in the most dire of circumstances.
Yeah.
Then I have a novel, like a not self-help, like sort of non-fiction. I have a fiction book called Stoner, and I always recommend this one because that whole quote of "most men live lives of quiet desperation." That is like this is the book about that. Look at that guy's face. He is so
Yeah.
sad. This
Uh-huh.
is this is about a guy who just settled in life, and it's sort of to me a reminder of that hell that you should run from because if you just become complacent and don't push towards meaning, that's what your life looks like.
So you read that and you feel motivated or
Yeah, it's just like a very somber view at what life could be didn't if I didn't go after my full potential. If I didn't really push hard enough and I just sort of went with momentum,
yeah.
that's what my life would look like. It'd be very sad and passionless, and it's not good.
Yeah.
This next one's about like men, like it's about the archetypes of men. So I guess it's more geared towards men, but men and women. Because if you're a woman, this can help you understand. If you're dating a man, help you understand your the mind of your partner. It's
Hmm.
called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and
Or if you're just like you want to like nourish your masculine side.
yeah, exactly. Because there is actually a female version of this. I haven't read it yet, and
Oh,
I don't think it's from the same people, but I want to read that one because, like you said, I just want to get what I don't have, like kind of touch up on the things that I'm missing.
yeah.
Um, I forget what that one's called, but this one it's based in Carl Jung's. psychology about the collective unconscious, and the idea is that there are four mature masculine archetypes: the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. And this book breaks it down. It's a really fast read, and it breaks it down just very practically. Like, this is the king, this is what the king looks like if he's the shadow version and bad, and watch out for these guys. And then this is the king in its full form, you want to achieve this, the warrior. And so, like, for me, I'm a magician. These are people who are like inquisitive and like to learn stuff, and
Yeah,
it's cool to just connect with one of these people and see a guideline for what to avoid and what. Um, it was just a very useful book for me in the sense of understanding myself and those around me.
that's cool.
And I did mention this one already, but extreme ownership, just because this is like the most hardcore, U.S. Navy SEAL, like, figure it out.
There's so many like Navy SEALs guys
I
who
know
write books.
they love writing. My dad just gave me what Can't Hurt Me by, I can't think of the guy's name, but the other, David
Oh,
Goggins.
yeah, my brother just read that.
Did
Yeah,
you like it?
I saw like a clip of him on Joe Rogan, and
Hmm.
I told my brother, I was like, "Dude, you gotta read this one." He loved it.
Okay, nice. Yeah, my dad really liked it too. He just gave that to me, so I'll have to check that
Cool.
one out. I'm reading Matthew McConaughey's book right now, so
How's that?
it's really good. It's actually really good. He has the craziest stories, a weird life, but he has got some cool principles. I picked it up after Joe Rogan, seeing him on Joe, because he had some cool ideas. Um, and my friend is just obsessed with Matthew McConaughey, so I got it to buddy read with him. It's like his boyfriend in his head, I swear.
What like as an I'm not drawn to him as an actor at all. Do you
Hmm.
have to be to get something out of it, or?
No, I mean, I can name like two movies of Matthew McConaughey's that I've seen. Like, I think he was in Wall Street for a scene, and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I watch with my wife sometimes. Like, he's in that one. But I'm not a Matthew McConaughey fan, I guess, but he's just
Yeah.
got some cool life principles, and it's based off journals he's been writing for 30 years. So I thought that was
Oh,
cool. Yeah, like he went to the wilderness or whatever for a couple months, took all of his journals from 30 years, and did like a book based on that.
oh, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Do you do any like do you listen to any podcasts or anything on the
Oh
regular?
yeah, I do. I just found one yesterday that's amazing. I don't know if have you heard of this one called Model Health?
Nope.
You gotta check out Model Health. I'd never heard of this before, but this guy is good, and I think it's like even more so up your alley. It's like the nutrition and health and fitness on that side, like a lot of nutrition facts. He has a book called Sleeping Smarter, and he has a new book coming out called Eating Smarter. But man,
I'm gonna
it's
write
so
it
good.
down so I can look it up.
I'm gonna open my library and see. So I like to listen to, of course, the big guy Joe Rogan. Um, Modern Wisdom is one that I really like. It's Chris Williams, I think is the guy's name who hosts it. But Modern Wisdom, he has a lot of like the top psychology minds on, and philosophers, and it's just a good podcast to hear really neat ideas and really neat conversations.
Okay.
American Glutton is one by the actor Ethan Suplee, I think is his name. Have you ever seen My Name Is Earl, or I think he was in Remember the Titans? He was in American History X. He was the like seriously obese guy, like 400, 500 pounds, I think he said. And now he's like in really good shape. And he's breaking down like how he had his weight loss journey and
Huh.
what he thinks is wrong with like the nutrition industry and things like that. So that's an interesting podcast. Trying to see what else is a good one. I personally like Jocko Willing's podcast, but it's not really for everyone. He goes through books, and so I get a
Okay.
lot of book recommendations. He'll like
Yeah.
open a book and read from it and talk about it. And then I guess the last one I'll say is for men specifically is Order of Man is one of my favorites. He's a former Marine, so he just gives a nice. His podcasts are very structured. Like, he has a notebook and he has
He
lessons that he wants to go through.
he's a Marine. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. He's very checklist oriented, and he's like this, and then it's like a fast bunch of information on you, and useful. So those, I guess, are the top ones I'd say. Since the pandemic, I've not been on top of the podcast game because I used to do it in the car and I don't go anywhere. So
right.
I've just been more in books and like interviews on YouTube, I guess, whatever that would be. I'm sure that some of those are still podcasts, but it's
Yeah.
hard to like remember the podcast names and things like that. But that model health is one that I just found the other day that I'm gonna start to
Yeah.
watch again.
I'll check that out. Yeah, like stuff like that. I listen to it like when I'm doing like, the monotonous like labeling my like little tins that I use and
Yeah,
product stuff and like building out box like that's when I listen to the interesting things I can learn from. Because otherwise I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and listen to something?
right.
Like it's weird. Like
Yeah, most of my time right now is spent in school, so like I would love to do my work and listen to podcasts, but I have to like actually pay attention, which
yeah.
sucks. Like
Yeah.
I don't have as much free time, but I've been going on walks, and that's when I've been getting podcasts in. But I just have usually been doing YouTube instead and listening to like an interview or a video on a topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, going for walks is basically my time to listen to podcasts at this point.
Do you have any like kind of routines that you do that you find better your mental health and overall health, like morning or evening or whatever?
Yeah, I wake up early, and I think that might not be for everyone, but for people who it is for, waking up early is one of my favorites. I just did a video on like the philosophy of waking up early. It's just such like a nice cheat code for life. I can get so much more. I like to write, and that's the time where I can do that kind of stuff. The stuff that doesn't really benefit me now, but might in the future, like working on Save for More and things like that, and getting my exercise in for the day. I can fit all that in before the day's responsibilities begin, and then I'm working against the clock because everyone says the same thing every time. I don't have time. That's like
Right.
people's excuse. So I like to wake up early. I usually go right into work because I feel fresh, like most refreshed and good to go in the morning. So I really try to go as hard as I can for work at that point. And then I go to the boxing gym in the evenings. So I'd say just like broad for people is make sure you get outside in the day and exercise in the day. Those are like like non-negotiables for me. I have to go outside because I'm not just going to stay in the dungeon and not have any sunlight. I need to go out and also exercise because I need to move. I just sit there in class all day,
Mhm.
and if I just lay down at the end of the day and I've just sat all day and just ate and sat and ate and sat, so it's not what our bodies were meant to do. That's not how we like evolved to be. We were moving to eat and eating to move. So I want to try to emulate that.
Yeah. I mean, sunlight is really important with your
Yeah.
circadian rhythm. And I mean, a lot of like mental health imbalances. Like if I think like letting your body, I feel like people just kind of forget like I feel like the most basic principle of we are nature and we need to like live with nature and then like natural cycles like seasonally and like the daytime and sun and moon and that kind of stuff is like really important.
Yeah. The circadian rhythm is one that I think got jacked up recently with like cell phones and things. I know that I watch TV before bed. My wife's on her phone all the time before bed 'cause she reads something on her phone. And I'm like, that's just so bad for our circadian rhythms. Our mind, like our human body is like, "Oh, it's light, it's night, it's like out is it morning time right now? Should I be up?" And it's actually nighttime, we're trying to go to bed, but your body's so confused because it's just seeing all this artificial light.
Yeah.
We're not meant for that.
And I feel like because I keep my phone like all the time having that the blue light filter.
Mhm.
Um, so it actually like when I take pictures to put on like, Instagram or to do something with, I have to like, oh yeah, like this is a not an actual true representation of the
Yeah.
picture color. Tangent. But anyways, even barring that, I feel like you're still just I don't know, the electronic like connection and that stimulation at night before bed, light aside, I feel like is just not healthy.
Mhm. Yeah, even just, like, the dopamine spikes of scrolling through, like, Instagram or something like that, it's definitely jacking your body up into a different state than sleep, and,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Do you go to bed earlier since you wake up so
Yeah,
early?
I wake up at, like, 5 every day and sometimes before 5, so people are like, "What, you go to bed at, like, 8?" And I'm like, "Yeah, 100%. I go to bed at,
You're
like,
like, nah,
8 o'clock."
6.
No, I seriously go to bed b by like, a late night for me is 10. Like, if I see 10 o'clock, I'm like, "Dude, this is the latest. This is crazy. I'm a party animal." 11 is an actual miracle. So, I would say I'm between 8 and 10 is my bedtime.
And so consistency is important to you?
Yeah, I like routines and consistency, so I'm going to bed at 8, I'm gonna wake up at 5, I'm gonna go grab coffee, I'm gonna do work, my day kind of looks similar, which can get boring to some people, but for me, that's what I thrive in. I like that.
Okay.
I like that same kind of like
Are you
rhythm.
like a list maker or, like a planner kind of person?
Yeah, I do checklists, and it varies in my life. Like if things are getting hectic, I will actually pull out my. I have like a little tiny book that I probably got like Barnes and Noble or something, like one of those little ones, um, to actually make a hand checklist, like an actual checklist that I like to check off. But if things are not that bad and I'm like on top of things, I'm okay to keep it in my head. But
Mhm.
I'm always gonna have an overall week checklist and then a day-to-day checklist,
Okay.
that I work off of. So, like, Monday, I'm gonna sit down and my morning's gonna be dedicated to planning out the week, essentially. And it doesn't have to look that intense. I don't have to look like the guy from Order of Man who's, like, full Marine. He probably has, like, all these things out. I'm just sitting there, I'm like, "Alright, what do I have to do?" And there's actually something a resource that I would point people to called the Mind Sweep. And if you go on my website, I think on the morning planner that I have, like the day planner at the bottom, I give that link because I don't know exactly what it's called or how to get to it. That's just the fastest way. But it's called Minesweep, and it's just a a list to give
Uh-huh.
you what you might be forgetting to do or what kind of obligations you have outstanding. It's so helpful. It's like
Huh.
it has a personal section, a business section. It has all the different possibilities that you could be thinking of. So I run through that list on Mondays, and I'm like, okay, what do I have to do? And I figure it out and write that stuff down.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of like, do you take any supplements or focus on certain foods, either including or excluding, that you find help?
My biggest exclusion and like my one of my only dietary restrictions is like I hate sugar. I don't think sugar is good at all, so I just try to cut out as much sugar as humanly possible. And
What about, will you eat like dried fruit or, like like natural sugars like that, or do you minimize those too?
yeah, natural sugars I think are like I'm not smart enough to know at this point if those are good or not. So you tell me. But
I'm asking you, like, how do you feel on them? Because that's
okay,
that's an indicator.
I personally like them to an extent, but I still feel like they're a treat to me. I feel like they're still in that not dessert, full blown dessert category, but they're not the same as like kale or like chicken or something like that. Like it's I don't know.
Hey,
To
it's
me,
perspective, because when you start really cleaning up your diet and then you eat a carrot, you're like, "Oh my God, this is so sweet."
yeah,
So imagine eating like a date when you got a cleaned up diet. That is straight up
yeah,
caramel.
yeah. Seriously, it's so sweet to me. And did you know? Have you heard of this study where they gave them the same milkshake to two different control groups, and they told one that it was a fitness shake, and they told the other that this was a milkshake for like dessert.
Yeah.
And inside the body, how it was digested changed based on their perception of it.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'll try to find it and I'll send it to you.
What?
It's weird.
Did people like, did anyone enjoy the taste? What was it? Was it a sweet
It was
one?
I think it was an actual chocolate shake. I think it was actually a chocolate shake.
Okay.
Like bad for you chocolate shake. And they were telling some people it was a fitness shake and telling some people it was the chocolate shake.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if the people that had the fitness shake, if they were like, "Oh, this doesn't even taste good," but it was like the best
Right.
milkshake, but it changed how they tasted it.
Yeah, I forget. It might actually have been a part, but I just remember the fact that like internally it was changing how your body like processed it because of their thoughts on it, which was mind blowing to me. I was like, that is weird.
Well, it's so crazy. I mean, just like in general, that everyone says, like your gut is your second brain. And like,
100%.
I found it so interesting that serotonin is primarily released from your gut. Like all these hormones come
90
from
to
your gut.
95% of serotonin is in your freaking gut, and we're not talking about that? Like, what are you
Right.
talking about?
Right.
That's
I
and
mean,
GABA is in there, like, there's so much dopamine's in there, it's all in the gut, so that's kind of at least, like, we're going back to the beginning, that's why we cannot overlook that in counseling. Why are we just gonna blow past that, which we're talking about mood and mental health, we can't just be, like, not asking you what you're eating, not
yeah,
asking you what your
yeah.
fitness is like.
Totally. Microbiome health is so important.
Yeah.
If
Which
anybody needs
actually
to know more, wellness
that's
provisions.
yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what for Christmas? I'm gonna stock up on some of your products because gut biome stuff is sick. Like, what kind of gut biome products should I get from you? Because I'm gonna give everybody some of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Um, I mean, this could go on a while. I have trouble. I got to be like short with supplement stuff because they're fun rabbit holes for me.
Yeah,
Um, Zinc, just one random thing. Zinc actually is really great for sealing the tight junctions in your gut. So, leaky gut syndrome is becoming more and more known. Oh, basically everybody has it. I mean, unless you have like the cleanest diet and you've done
Yeah.
work and stuff like, and so what it is you have these like seals in your gut, and like I guess it'd be like that if you've got leaky gut. So
Mm.
things are passing through, and then if you seal it, you're
Oh,
keeping the
yeah.
nutrients and anything like in your gut, so it's not getting in your bloodstream. So sealing the tight junctions is one of the most important things to do. Um, Bone broth is fabulous for that,
I love
whether
bone
you're
broth.
making it yourself or like I sell and it's in the gut health kit. It's a powder. So they make bone broth and then dehydrate it, and the one I sell is a vanilla flavor. So they then kind of turned it into like a protein powder, but it is dehydrated bone broth that then you are reconstituting with a liquid. Um, so you can do like a protein shake or whatever with that. There's another powder that's got some mushrooms that are really, really good for gut health. Um, and I'm thinking, and then, probiotics, obviously, but prebiotics are extremely important because they are the good food for the good bacteria so they continue to thrive. Prebiotics are also typically found like as like fiber supplements. They kind of like it's a overlap.
Package deal. Yeah.
So I'll
I
stop
know
on
that
that now.
when I have the actual brick and mortar saved for more, I'm gonna have to always refer to you as a resource because the gut health kit, especially because I'm gonna really stress that gut health thing. Like if it's 90% of the mood, I want to do some work with that and definitely you know, offer your website and your kit as the resource.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Um, Let me see if I have any other pressing questions. Is there anything else that you want to like sort of mention, like words for wisdom for anybody or anything like that?
I guess it would go back to how you were gonna ask about the favorite quote. I've been thinking about one of my that would be like the words for wisdom is
Okay.
my favorite quote is from Nietzsche. It's he who has a strong why can withstand any how, and that is like what the man's search for meaning is sort of about. If if you find like what you're passionate about and the reason you're doing something, nothing's gonna stop you, and that's the most beneficial in a nutshell thing you could have. Like you saw you when I asked about the gut health thing, and you're talking about how supplements are a rabbit hole and you get fun and it's exciting. I think finding that excitement and something that you're passionate about and finding like the why in your life, that's that's the best. That's like what you need to have a fulfilling life.
Yeah. Yeah. Friendship and having a why.
Yeah. Yeah, and friendship. We cannot community is being, you know, we're neglecting that, I feel like. We gotta not do that because we're
Yeah.
built
And
in tribe.
remembering that your phone and people through your phone isn't, I mean, if it's possible to, like be with people in real life, it makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely. We were brought up like we were made in tribes for our minds are meant like made for that. So
Hmm.
to try to go against that and do something different is going against our nature. And that's a
Yeah.
Musashi quote is never go against your nature. Um, so yeah, don't do that.
I dig it. Do you have anything cool coming out or anything you want people to know about? Say for more?
Well, right now I'm just gonna keep going with the psychoeducation stuff while I go through school and just trying to offer content that's helpful and offer conversations that are helpful. So you can find that at saved underscore for underscore more on Instagram and saved for with the number four more.com. And
Make
I have
sure
a
to
no.
speak this slowly because I'm not going to do any hyperlinks. So,
Okay, yeah. So saved underscore for underscore
yeah,
more underscore
yeah.
on Instagram. That'll be where you'll find everything. And I have a novel coming out, in like that should be in about a year. So I would recommend looking for that. I'm excited for that.
What's it in a nutshell? What's it about?
It's a boxing novel, but more so it's a catalyst to get my favorite like existentialism, REBT, all these concepts that helped me in life, shove those in there. So there's a
Okay.
character in there who's gonna like is essentially the negative mindset I had in high school, and there's characters in there that are like the archetypal father of like my ideal self, and it's just it's like sort of giving someone I'm trying to give someone a counseling session within a boxing book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's my
Do you have it
announcement, I guess.
totally written or are you still
Yeah, I have it written. I'm just doing like rewrites and that's it. Just working
are you
on it.
self-publishing or
Yeah, I'm just gonna self-publish because this is my first novel. I don't even think like publishers probably reject it in a second, and that's not what's important about it to me. Is like getting published. I just want people to actually just read it, and I just want to show people it. So I'm doing it myself.
how many pages is it?
I don't know page count, but it's 65,000 words. On a Word document, it's like over 200 pages, but I don't know once it's condensed to its format what it'll look like.
Yeah.
But it's like 65,000. I think they said that's around like a Great Gatsby novel
Okay.
length, or
Okay.
like it's probably gonna look like Man's Search for Meaning in size. Like not, it's not gonna be gigundous, but let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably around like a 200 page mark here as well. So
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, I'm excited.
I want a signed copy.
Absolutely, I'll give you a signed copy.
All right, well, far out. I'm gonna let you proceed with your day and, get some sunlight, and I will chat with you later.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
for
Yep.
being here. I appreciate sharing your insightful and interesting, like therapy kind of background, psychology stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
All right, cool. Bye.
See ya.